Hello learners. So we've come to the last segment for our 50-second lecture on fair and equitable treatment. So in this we look at, I ended the last video by saying that by carefully drafting the provision of fair and equitable treatment provision in a BIT, we can address the problem with regard to uncertainty and the divergent approach of the tribunal as well, right? So how do we then draft the FET clause? UNCTAD had given some solutions with regard to it. UNCTAD had basically spoken about 4 possibilities. One, clearly spelling out what is meant by fair and equitable treatment. This is one of the approach that can be taken. And secondly, what could have been done is completely removing FET clause as from the BIT itself, or making it merely a political commitment rather than a legal obligation. So how do you do it? You just mention about it in the preamble itself. So these are the things that UNCTAD had suggested that can be done. But if we look at Commonwealth Secretariat, it had come up with a sample provision for FET clause, wherein firstly it suggests for not using the term fair and equitable treatment, replacing with minimum standard of treatment, because that will remove the confusions whether it is tied to customary international law, it is an autonomous this thing. So don't use fair and equitable treatment, the phrase itself, use minimum standard of treatment. Secondly, it stated that explicitly mentioned that the treatment is tied to customary international laws, minimum standard of treatment. Thirdly, in the sample provision that it had given, Commonwealth Secretariat, it also stated that the level of development should also matter, the political and economic development of the host state. It's interesting because in Glamis Gold case, this was an argument taken by Glamis Gold. It stated that since United States is a developed country, so the standard of FET clause is higher, and that cannot be limited to customary international laws, minimum standard of treatment. However, the tribunal, Glamis Gold Tribunal, rejected this argument, and it stated that the obligation is same. It's not dependent on the level of development of the country. So that was decided here. But the Commonwealth Secretary sample provision includes one provision which again talks about the level of development of a country also. Then it says for greater certainty, you can say that the regulatory measures will not be affected by this particular clause, and the host state should be in a position to enact regulatory measures. So this is how Commonwealth Secretariat had taken it. If we look at our own model BIT, India's model BIT 2016, we have not used the explicit term fair and equitable treatment, but the terms that we've used is minimum standard of treatment, and then we have spelled out what is meant by what are the treatments that India will give to the investors. One is it talks about denial of justice, it talks about fundamental breach of due process, it talks about targeted discrimination based on manifestly unjustified grounds, then manifest arbitrariness. So all of these are something that is mentioned in Indian model India BIT as well. So some of the scholars or some people say that Indian model India BIT does not guarantee fair and equitable treatment. They're completely wrong, because it's just that we've taken the approach of addressing the uncertainty that currently exists. So if somebody says that in model India BIT does not have a fair and equitable treatment provision, that is completely wrong. It's just that we have a certain scope of fair and equitable treatment, FET clause is there. It's just that we followed the suggestions of Commonwealth Secretariat, we followed the UNCTAD suggestions, and then we have accordingly drafted our FET provision in such a way. So it is if you cannot make a blanket statement and say that India is not providing FET standard in its new model India BIT, in my opinion, that would be completely wrong. So the point here is uncertainty exists with regard to the scope of FET, and we do see incoherent and different interpretation given by the arbitral tribunal. So that way, having if the country spell out what is it that a country is able to provide for an investor in the context of fair and equitable treatment, spelling out the protections, then that would reduce the discretion on the part of the tribunal as well, and the investor also, when making a claim or while making an investment, comes with a clear picture of what is the protection that the investor will get from the country as well. So this, in my opinion, will solve most of the problems that exist with regard to fair and equitable treatment. So with that, let me end this lecture, lecture number 52. And in the next video, we will look at lecture number 53, which talks about how transparency as a concept will help us in integrating environmental principles within the field of international investment law, which is anyway the focus of our course. And then subsequently, we will take the discourse further with by discussing the concept of amicus curiae and how mediating investment disputes which involves an environmental regulatory measure and all of these things. We'll take those discussions in the subsequent weeks. Thank you.